now time for the Billy C. Show, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Caligiero. It's time for the Billy C. Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening. I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show, real quick, being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Men on the Planet. I've been hawking this book for a few years now. Get yourself a copy. You can get it on Amazon.com, and it's a great stocking stuffer. The truth of the matter with this book, I took my speech lessons from Porky Pig, but the beauty of this book, it fits right in the stocking. Folds right out, fits in the stocking. If you want a signed copy, just drop me an email, billy@talkinboxing, TALKINBOXING.com. Let's get with it. We are going to talk mostly today about Anthony Joshua's ninth round knockout over Kubrat Pulev last night. And first of all, I got to say this. I love watching major fights in the afternoon, early evening. I love it. I mean, when we have them here in the States, we got to wait till midnight, 11 p.m., something like that. I'm just getting old, man. I can't stay up that late. Come on. A happening night for me is 9 p.m. But anyway, in case you missed it, AJ took care of business, stopped Pulev at 2 minutes and 58 seconds of the ninth round. It was a knockout. He improves to 24 wins, 1 loss. His only loss coming to Andy Ruiz Jr. with 22 of his wins coming by knockout. Kubrat Pulev drops to 28-2. His only 2 losses coming at the hands of some major players, AJ and, of course, Klitschko. Mr. Klitschko was his other loss. How did the fight go? Well, in my opinion, Anthony Joshua won every single round up until the knockout. He did drop Pulev twice in round 3. His uppercut was working last night. There's no question about it. Some devastating shots landed on Pulev. We're going to be bringing, of course, Dax Khan on, and also my man Alex Papali in a little bit. But the truth of the matter is, first of all, sit down, okay? Just sit down for a minute, because what I'm going to say is most likely going to be a shock to a lot of people, because make no secret, Anthony Joshua of the heavyweights is my guy. I mean, he's the one I like the most, and for the longest time I thought was the best in the world. It's easy to say, well, Tyson Fury beats AJ. I'm not so sure about that. But I will tell you this. Deontay Wilder, who I think is a fraud, okay, and I think he's lost his mind. He's a one-trick pony. He's not as good as people say. He's not as good as he thinks. But I think he beats Anthony Joshua. And I'll tell you why. Anthony Joshua last night, and listen to me, this does not mean he's a better fighter than AJ. Styles make fights. Any boxing fan has heard this their whole life, right? Or at least as long as you've been a fan. Styles make fights. You go through the history of the sport, and you see this guy fought that one, and he beat him, and then he beats another guy who loses to the other guy. I mean, it's just the style. And the problem with AJ, and it has not been corrected. We can say whatever we want about the loss to Andy Ruiz. He took it lightly, blah, 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 which is most likely the case. I mean, Andy Ruiz, is the type of fighter. He doesn't look like a fighter. But the thing about Ruiz is that he's got really fast hand speed. I mean, the bottom line is AJ wasn't ready for that. Plus, he wasn't training 100% for that fight. So there was a lot of reasons why he lost, and Andy Ruiz was the better man that night. Now, of course, AJ made up for that in the rematch. He fought a totally different style fight, similar to Tyson Fury, using his brain, mixing up the game plans for his fights against Deontay Wilder. But when I look at Deontay and I look at what he does, and let's face it, he does one thing. he looks for the knockout. He's a headhunter. That's all he's got. He's got no defense. He's got no footwork. He's got nothing. He's a fraud with a lot of pop. And that pop has carried him to where he is today, sitting with one loss where realistically he should have two. But the way AJ does not protect himself, his hands are down. He's usually so much bigger than his opponents. Okay, which incidentally, he was listed last night at 6'6", and Pulev was listed at 6'4". It looked like he was a foot taller than Pulev. I don't know. Brian Kenny said the same exact thing. I'm making notes on my sheets here, and I'm going. He looks a hell of a lot taller than 2 inches. And as soon as I said that, Brian Kenny comes back and says the same thing. But the truth of the matter is because of his guard or lack of. I think Deontay catches him, and now maybe he fights a smarter fight. Maybe he tries to stay on the outside and outbox Deontay, which is easy to do. Deontay doesn't know how to box really, but it's a fight that I don't like for AJ. Now I love AJ against Tyson Fury. I think that's a good fight because I think AJ can box, and of course Tyson Fury can box. I just don't think that AJ will come up short. I think he's got more punching power. I think he lands on Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury is susceptible to the uppercut, and that seems to be one of AJ's favorite punches. Remember, Steve USS Cunningham dropped him with an uppercut. And, there's no way Cunningham's got the pop. AJ does. And AJ can box. And he can box from the outside. I like the two styles for a future matchup between AJ and Tyson Fury. But if I'm AJ, I'm not really gunning for Deontay Wilder. And quite frankly, Deontay Wilder, he might be out of the picture for a little bit anyway. He does have to get another fight under his belt. I personally don't think that Tyson Fury should even consider fighting him again at all. And not because I think that Deontay would beat him. I just think, why do we need to see it again? We saw, make no mistake, we saw Tyson Fury beat Deontay Wilder twice. He was robbed in the first fight. Robbed. I mean, I don't care what you think. Yeah, 2 knockdowns doesn't make a fight a draw because every other round was dominated by Tyson Fury. But anyway, back to AJ and Pulev. Pulev's a good fighter, but he is what he is. Not in the same class as Anthony Joshua. And which brings me to some of the commentary that was going on last night. They were trying to say Huey Fury it could beat everybody in the world at heavyweight except the upper echelon, which is AJ and Tyson Fury, which they would never fight each other, and maybe even Deontay or like Ortiz, but they felt that he could beat everyone else, which I'm not so sure of, to be honest with you. But in any event, Anthony Joshua, after a long layoff, is back. We'll see what fight he takes on next. Eddie Hearn, his promoter, says they're looking to fight Tyson Fury sometime next year, 2021. The thing that separates boxing of yesteryear to boxing of today is that the big fights that we wanted to see were made. That's not so much the case today. A lot of these guys, they try to marinate it, if you want to take a phrase from the dinosaur Bob Arum. But the truth of the matter is they marinate it so long that it loses its flavor, since we're going to stay with the marination type of adjectives here. But it loses its flavor. It marinates too much and it's over. Or that we don't get to see the fighters at their prime. Right now, the fight out there has to be AJ against Tyson Fury. Deontay Wilder's still in the mix. I mean, I know I was talking negatively of him, but he does have that one strength, and it's his strength, his knockout power, which no one may have equal. He may be the hardest punching heavyweight in the world today. But unfortunately, in the sport of boxing, you need more than just pop. I was excited about this fight because I wanted to see Anthony Joshua and what he would do, because his last outing with his payback victory over Andy Ruiz Jr., he displayed kind of a Klitschko-esque type performance where he fought very smart, he was patient, he won the fight, hands down, on points. He could have done the same thing against Pulev last night. But they kept saying, he's going to get back into the old slaying his opponents and knocking them out and going after them and being the beast that he is. Is that smart for AJ? I mean, the truth of the matter is the elephant in the room here, besides myself, is the fact that he does have a suspect chin. He was beaten up. And listen, make no mistake. You could sugarcoat it. And listen, nobody loves the British boxing fans more than me. As a matter of fact, over the years, this is our 17th year, over the years, I had really wished that I would have had an opportunity to do this show in England because, to tell you the truth, the British boxing fans not only are the most knowledgeable of the fans, but they take this sport to heart more than anyone else I've ever met. And it would have been great for us to do this show there at some point. But those days are behind us now. And the truth of the matter is I just think that, the truth is Andy Ruiz isn't a power puncher, and AJ was stopped by him. You could say what you want about lack of training and everything else. We witnessed Mike Tyson get stopped by Buster Douglas, even though they had a long count, and the fight should have went to Tyson, but that's besides the point. So the truth of the matter is there comes a point in a fighter's career, like Klitschko, when he decided, hey, you know what? Let me box. If the knockout comes, it comes. If not, a win's a win's a win's a win. That's the way it should be. Take the win and get out of there. Personally, I was a little surprised to see AJ come out like that. Now, I don't know if he's thinking, like Pulev was not going to hurt him or anything, which could be the case. Pulev, he looks like a dangerous guy, but I've said this many, many times. I got to see him up close ringside in Denmark, and he's not all that. I mean, he's a big dude, but in street clothes, he doesn't look any bigger than some, strong-arm guy that you would meet on the corner in the city. But, the truth of the matter is he doesn't have the pop they make him up to be. Derek Rossi had him in all kinds of trouble, and they waved off the fight when he, landed a solid shot on Derek. So I've had my questions about Pulev since then, and maybe that's why AJ went after him the way he did, because he didn't at first, but he definitely stepped it up by the third round, and then he just kept the pressure on, and Pulev was just smiling and happy. I think the reason was because of the money he was making, because he certainly wasn't getting under AJ's skin or anything like that. So that was that. Couple of interesting stats about the fight. I like the broadcast team of Brian Kenny and Sergio Mora for DAZN. Can't stand Chris Maddox. I know my man Alex Papali likes him. We went through this when we were in Vegas together, but Chris Maddox, I don't know, man. I don't know. But 241 pounds is what AJ weighed last night, a few pounds heavier than his rematch with Andy Ruiz. 82-inch reach was a substantial advantage over the 39-year-old Pulev, who weighed 240 pounds. So, I mean, like I said, I gave every single round to AJ. So at the time of the stoppage, I had him up by 10 points already. It was 80-70 after the eighth round. there was the 10-7 round in round 3. So that's where I came up with those scores. But in any event, I wanted to just announce real quick the rest of our schedule for this year. We will be doing a show next week. We are going to talk a little about Canelo and Canelo-Smith when the guys come on. But after that, we're done for the year. And it's kind of sad to officially announce that we're done doing a regular show altogether. We did it for 17 years. We ran our course. I announced it on John Signorella's show. I was a guest on his show, and I'm going to be open for doing guest spots and stuff like that in the future. But we've decided that we are not going to be doing a regular show anymore. We will be doing some specials from time to time. And as a matter of fact, Alex and Dax are preparing to do some short videos that we will post. So you'll still get content from Billy C Boxing, and of course Dax is the main man with the website, and we have some other contributors as well. So we're going to maintain that. But as far as doing the show on a regular basis, we won't, unless the demand is so high. That's the whole thing. I just feel I don't have the demand that we used to. And, be as it may, it is what it is, So that's, I just wanted to officially announce. It is what it is, Stuff like that happens occasionally. And that's what we're doing now. So, in any event, I'm going to get my man Dax on the phone here in a second. And first he denied me. I tried calling Dax, and he denied my call. I mean, it's like, what's going on, Dax? I mean, you don't love me no more. But anyway, we're going to get Dax on here in a second, and Dax's thoughts are being brought to us by, you guessed it, SouthernGourmetSpice.com. Kenny Bear's barbecue rub. I'm addicted to this stuff. I love it. I haven't talked to Kenny, but I need some of that. But really, what I really like is their new products, both their all-purpose seasoned salt and my new favorite, the Blackened Cajun Rub. Get yourself a bottle of everything that they have. Just visit their website, SouthernGourmetSpice.com. Make sure you tell them Billy C sent you. And joining us right now, the guy who refused my call is Dax Khan. Good morning, Dax.
Morning, Billy C.
What's up with that, man? I see this message pops up, says, Dax refused your call. I'm like, what? What do you mean you refused my call?
I clicked it as I'm looking away at the same time, and I look over, and there's nothing, and I'm like, I turn over to the other setting, and it says, call declined. I'm like, really?
So I'm like, what was it, something I said? But anyway, AJ knocks out Pulev in the 9th round last night, which incidentally, I love when the fights are on that time. But what's your thoughts of the performance of both?
I'm not really sure what the future holds for Anthony Joshua, to be truly honest. Years ago, I said, is he going to be the next Lennox Lewis, or is he going to be the next Frank Bruno? Frank Bruno was a great fighter. He was strong. He had problems with his conditioning, and that was Frank's biggest problem because he was overly muscular, and we've seen that with Anthony Joshua. He knocked out Kubrat Pulev, which was expected. Pulev is 39. Since losing to Vladimir Klitschko in 2014, which is 6 years, almost going on 7 years ago now, Pulev has faced second, even third tier heavyweights, with no disrespect to them, but the always exciting Derek Chisora, a pass to Sam Peter, Huey Fury, who's not yet developed, Rydell Booker, and again, not to discredit any of those guys, but Pulev hasn't exactly been at that top level. I think he kind of waited a long time for that IBF mandatory position as he kind of aged, because he's not a draw, and because of that, the business side of the sport, took over. It was odd of how the DAZN team, 1 minute would say Pulev only has one loss, and that was to Vladimir Klitschko in the middle of Klitschko's long-term reign, and then the next comment would by one announced member or the other would be Pulev is one-dimensional and easy to figure out. It's like, 1 second you're trying to build him up and make him this highly credible opponent. The next thing you're doing is you're passing him off as he's just, a showcase performance, more or less. Excuses about how Joshua's been out of the ring a year, so you can't expect a great performance from him or any other fighter who takes a year off. Oddly, with Floyd Mayweather Jr. sitting at ringside, Floyd could take 3 years off and come back looking like he didn't take a day off. And they said that because Joshua looked very tentative early. Even when Joshua had Pulev hurt in that third round, he should have been able to finish him. Pulev had turned his back a few times. I'm surprised the ref didn't stop it. Joshua did what was expected, but again, we've seen a different version of Anthony Joshua than what we all became enamored with. We've seen a version of Anthony Joshua that makes me question something that he had said himself in the build-up to the fight when I was watching one of the Sky Sports, Sky Sports, their pre-fight face down, where he said, "I take men's souls in the ring. Once I seen them hurt, I finish them off." And just like with Pulev not going down and coming out in the fourth round looking, to resume fighting, same thing happened when Andy Ruiz got off that canvas in the third round, or was it the fourth round where Andy Ruiz got off the floor, and Anthony Joshua's eyes more or less had this look where maybe he had some flashbacks on, oh no, not again. I don't know, but, Anthony Joshua just really didn't seem like he wanted to engage with Pulev. I think the fifth round is where you've seen Pulev did very well. He pushed Anthony Joshua a little bit back. I think Anthony Joshua is a little bit punch shy. Make no mistakes. Anthony Joshua can box. I mean, he is an Olympic gold medalist. He does have that ability. But I think Anthony Joshua has resorted back to that outside moving style because Anthony Joshua is a little bit of punch shy. Anthony Joshua and his team realize, you don't have the best of chins. And Anthony Joshua, unlike Vladimir Klitschko, who you mentioned before, and unlike Lennox Lewis, the last really great heavyweight champion aside from the Klitschko brothers, and the last undisputed lineal heavyweight champion, Anthony Joshua, boxing in general, doesn't have a Manny Stewart type guy who can build Anthony Joshua into the fighter that he needs to be, dominant by adjusting his style to his size. And Anthony Joshua, unlike Klitschko and unlike Lennox Lewis, is not the biggest guy in the division. Tyson Fury, as a lot of people forget, his roots early on, when Tyson, before anybody really knew who he was, when he was clumsy, he was a kid that used to go to Kronk. He was there only a short time, but Manny Stewart said in several interviews years afterwards, following up, that at one point in time, Tyson Fury is going to be the heavyweight champion of the world. He's going to be the man of this division. And we've seen him going back to those roots in the first Deontay Wilder fight, where he was able to go out there, he was able to lean on Deontay Wilder, he was able to bully him on the inside, and that is exactly what I can see happening when he faces Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua and both Eddie Hearn kind of pulled a chump move at the end, where they just almost refused to say Tyson Fury's name. Instead, Anthony Joshua comes out with, I respect him very much. He's a great champion. I think he mentioned the titles, but I'm the best IBF, WBA, and WBO champion. So I'm not really sure what damage mentally has been done to Anthony Joshua. I think Anthony Joshua at this moment is one loss away from being totally ruined. I believe Deontay Wilder is still recovering from that brutal beatdown that Tyson Fury gave him. We know Tyson Fury wants to fight. We know Bob Arum wants to fight. I mean, Arum, when the fight started, was posting pictures of himself on Twitter sitting alone watching the fight. Right now, Anthony Joshua, like I said, he's punch shy. I don't see this fight taking place in 2021. If Tyson Fury's stay busy opponent, Jake Cabile, didn't run into some sort of legal trouble or injury, which kind of scrapped Tyson Fury's stay busy fight, would have been sauce on the pasta, so to speak. where in terms of where fans would have pressured that fight to happen sooner than later. So I don't expect that to happen next year. I tweeted off our account since Anthony Joshua entered into that Rocky Fourth, that soundtrack from Rocky 4. I said, to continue with the Rocky theme, Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn both know what Fury. Both know about Tyson Fury what Duke knew about Rocky Balboa when Apollo Creed said he wanted the rematch. He's all wrong for us, baby. I seen that man get hit and take punches I've never seen another man take before and still keep coming. And that's what Tyson Fury did with Deontay Wilder in that first fight, and we know what happened in the second fight. So I really do not see any point in time Eddie Hearn or Anthony Joshua getting into the ring with Tyson Fury, who just gets better and better and better. Agree or disagree, but I go by this due to answers in previous interviews before last night, the body language of Anthony Joshua in the Ruiz rematch, the body language of Anthony Joshua last night, and just by the way him and Eddie Hearn do anything just to more or less avoid saying the name Tyson Fury.
Well, first of all, I think that a couple of things I made a note of. They kept talking about Pulev with the game plan of attacking Klitschko and going punch for punch with him, and that was his mistake. That wasn't true. Klitschko was like Tyson Fury was in the second fight with Deontay Wilder. Klitschko fought the most exciting fight I think he ever fought in his life against Pulev. And I've always said, and we talked about it on this show, that if Klitschko fought like that all the time, he would be on the top of all time heavyweights. Everybody would say that. You yourself said how Klitschko dominated division. You could make the argument that he didn't even lose a round for a decade, almost, or close to a decade. So the fact that AJ came in and fought the way he did, kind of, it seemed like he did have more confidence, that he's gained more confidence back in his old style since the Ruiz fight. But I think he should have learned something from the first Ruiz fight, and I think he should have torn a page out of the Klitschko book and get back to boxing. I disagree with you about the Tyson Fury. I have a feeling that AJ beats Tyson Fury. I just don't think Tyson Fury has the punching power. They both are excellent boxers. I think what it's going to boil down to is Tyson Fury, should they fight, Tyson Fury's defense, which is second to none. Can AJ get through it? Can he land some punches? If he can, Tyson Fury's in trouble. If he can't, AJ's in trouble. So I like the fight. There's a lot of question marks of how it could go. As far as AJ, I think that the problem, and we've talked about it on this show in the past, and others have as well, I think maybe McCracken has reached his potential with AJ. I don't know if someone else could help him at this point, but his lack of defense is what's alarming to me, Dax. I don't think he could beat a Deontay Wilder, not because Deontay Wilder has anything other than power, but because Deontay Wilder has the power, and AJ doesn't seem to defend himself enough. I think Deontay could catch him, and that's all it would take.
Well, conditioning is very important. We go with Lennox Lewis and Vladimir Klitschko, and outside of the Anthony Joshua loss and the Tyson Fury loss, where Tyson Fury more or less wouldn't allow Klitschko to land a glove on him, and Anthony Joshua fought a 40-year-old well past it Klitschko, their losses at their best came to the fact that they didn't know how to pace themselves. They were big guys against smaller guys who were more agile, who tired them out, and that's how Manny Stewart developed that style for them on how to wear them guys down. Now, Deontay Wilder's actually taller than Anthony Joshua. He's not bigger mass-wise, but Tyson Fury is huge compared to Deontay Wilder. Now, Tyson Fury going in there against Anthony Joshua is going to be exactly like how Lennox Lewis and Vladimir Klitschko used to go in against the 6'3" and 6'2" guys. That's going to be that size disparity. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you think that, let's say, Vladimir Klitschko at his best or Lennox Lewis at his best would be able to beat Anthony Joshua, the best version of Anthony Joshua we've seen so far?
It's a great question. It's a great question because...
Using their style and thinking about how Anthony Joshua, and especially when I said on this show, I think it was right after Carlos Takam fight, we did a post-fight, and I said, and you yourself balked at me, you thought it was funny, you kind of made a little snotty comment, and I forget who else did, but my words were, if this was any other opponent, Anthony Joshua would have ended up being knocked out. The way he was huffing and puffing in that corner at the end of the 5th round, I thought Anthony Joshua was going to have an asthma attack. And what happened 2 fights later, Andy Ruiz Jr. goes out there and just embarrasses Anthony Joshua, much for that very same reason. Anthony Joshua is not the biggest. He's a big, strong, impressive, aesthetically, looking fighter. He has world caliber skills, but on the other hand, Tyson Fury has those same skills. He's a lot bigger, and I made this post on Facebook last night purposely in terms of that power, where, at the heavyweight division, there's a difference between guys that have one-shot knockout power that can just put you to sleep by landing that single shot, which is a Deontay Wilder type. But in the heavyweight division, it's the only division where if a fighter gets all their weight behind them, they're able to put anybody out no matter what that skill level difference is. Take a Butterbean who was, largely out of shape. He didn't have Andy Ruiz type skills, but Butterbean would knock guys out because he knew how to get all that weight in there behind them. Tyson Fury's a harder puncher than given credit for. Tyson Fury, outside that Steve Cunningham flash knockdown, has a great chin. Look at how he just recovered from those knockdowns with Tyson Fury against Deontay Wilder, how he took whatever punches Deontay Wilder was able to land in their rematch. Anthony Joshua doesn't have harder one-punch power than Deontay Wilder does. And on the inside, where Vladimir Klitschko and Lennox Lewis were their best, where they were the bully on the inside, and they know how to use their body weight and push down on their opponents, and how to punch while inside doing that, tie their opponents up, frustrate them, and then once they were separated, use their distance, their jab, make it difficult for their opponents to get in, and then repeat that process. Tyson Fury, on top of being so agile for a 6'9" guy,
he's not that agile. He's not that agile.
He moves around great on his feet.
I don't know.
The way he leans back on it, he looks fantastic for a guy once he's in shape. Watch the Klitschko fight. Watch the first Deontay Wilder fight. A guy that big able to move around like that. Add all that together, and you have Vladimir Klitschko and Lennox Lewis kind of like, 2.0 in terms of size. Not skill-wise, but in terms of size. Add those other things on there, and it's going to be too much for Anthony Joshua, who, when he gets tired, who doubts himself when he doesn't hurt his opponent, and I really think Tyson Fury makes an example of him. And I'm not trying to discredit Anthony Joshua. He's a great fighter, but I'm just saying Tyson Fury has him mentally beaten before they even get into the ring. Anthony Joshua has to work himself up. Pay attention to him. Pay attention to his pre-fights. Anthony Joshua has to work his confidence up. Even if you've seen the face-off with him and Pulev before this fight, Anthony Joshua's kind of got to work himself into this this little fit of anger or rage, however you want to say it, to boost his confidence up. Tyson Fury oozes confidence like a snail. As Tyson Fury walks down the street, there's confidence left behind him on the sidewalk.
So let's talk a little about the fight coming up next week because it's an interesting fight between Canelo Alvarez and Canelo-Smith. They were talking last night about Canelo-Smith, and I don't discredit Canelo-Smith at all. And, they're saying, well, he is the super middleweight champion. When you look at Canelo-Smith's record, aside from Georgie Groves, I guess maybe the division just isn't as plentiful as it could be. But is he the best super middleweight out there? I mean, I guess we don't really have any other choices, but I look at his resume, and the John Ryder win in his last fight was a good one, only because John Ryder busted onto the scene on the undercard of a Canelo fight that we were in Vegas for. But aside from him and Georgie Groves, and I'm even giving Ryder more credit, I mean, Luke Blackledge, but who else? I mean, I just think he's in a kind of a weak division. And I do give Canelo all kinds of credit. I mean, this just shows us that, for the last decade, Saul Canelo Alvarez has fought nothing but the best. But how do you see this fight going? Is it going to be a challenge for Canelo?
Callum is really, he's got an odd herky-jerky style, very much like Josh Taylor, who's the top 140-pounder in the world right now. And he's a decent puncher. Except Canelo is just on that next level. There's no other way to put it. It's just Canelo is on that next level. I had recently gotten to a discussion about how good somebody is or how good somebody isn't. And I think with Canelo, something to the effect where I did the stats of his last 10 opponents. And I think that the stats of Canelo's his last 10 fights, you got to figure, he more or less, he's won titles in 4 divisions. He's beaten at least 3 Hall of Famers, 2 number 1 ranked guys in their division in Triple G and Sergey Kovalev, who are certainly guaranteed future Hall of Famers. He's beaten 5 multi-time world champions. He's beaten 1 multi-division world champion. The 9 current or former world champion, those guys that he beat, 9 current or former world champions with a combined 62 defenses to their resume in Canelo's last 10 fights. The combined record of Canelo's last 10 opponents, Billy C., listen to this, is 347, 16-4 with 231 knockouts, and not one of Canelo's last 10 opponents came in off a loss. That should be enough to tell you exactly what level Canelo was on.
No, I agree with you. I think that Canelo has proven that he, challenges himself. There's no question.
And I don't believe he's peaked yet. Not to interrupt you. I don't believe we've seen the best of him yet.
Well, we may start to, see the best of him. He is 30 years old now. He's got 50-something fights. So, it is an interesting fight. And I'm looking forward to it for sure.
But he is definitely, Canelo-Smith, he has to, due to the way he won that belt, Bill, in the World Boxing Super Series, which is something that was open and only the guys, more or less, to say it plainly, who had the balls entered. And he was the one that went in there. He was an underdog. George Groves was actually the favorite in that tournament. And he went out there and he won that. So, yes, I believe he is the best super middleweight in the world right now. But let me ask you a quick question. A lot of these young guys winning titles before 20 fights, in a lot of ways I see it's very detrimental. Last night we seen something kind of to show where Teofimo Lopez, who is a top fighter, he has a great win over Lomachenko. He is the man at 135 pounds. The guy he fought before then, Nakatani, gave him hell and kind of showed Teofimo Lopez is not invincible. Then we seen Nakatani last night come out like a madman. But on that undercard, after being knocked down and dropped, but on that undercard, Edgar Berlanga comes out. And Edgar Berlanga, now they're calling him, they have him marked down as a historical fighter for the most first-round KOs in a career starting out. I think now it's 16. They put him up there with the guys like Edwin Valero. And he comes out afterwards, and he had said this comment about how Canelo, Jaime Munguia, and Sergey Kovalev, unlike him, are not real fighters. What happens when he goes in there and he faces a guy that can't go down, that won't fall from that power?
Listen, it's happened in a sport. It's taken, the last decade. Fighters today talk shit talk smack, and they don't back it up. That's their only. That's how they think that they get the fights. They have to, because promoters really don't promote fighters anymore. So that's how. And because a lot of the younger fan base buy into that crap, it works. It makes me sick, Dax. And it's a great example. When fighters talk smack, when they've never proven themselves in the ring, and they end up, gaining shots. It's almost as bad as Shannon Briggs, who does it. We all laugh at him. But the method of let's go champ, is the same thing of what you're talking about. These guys figure if they ruffle the fighter's tail feathers enough, that he'll go to the powers that be and make the fight. It's sickening to watch. Everybody copies off of that Muhammad Ali, who was successful at it because he backed up what he said. And these guys today, I'm going to do it. Floyd did the same thing. Oh, I'm going to fight for real this time, and But in any event, what's your prediction for next week's fight?
I predict, Canelo is going to win a hard, tough-fought decision.
So you think it is going to be a competitive fight?
Yeah. Canelo-Smith is a big fighter, and the only reason why I mentioned that, Bill, is it had nothing to do with coming down on Berlanga or especially Teofimo Lopez, who proved so much in that Lomachenko win. The point of the matter is that it ties in with kind of, like this Anthony Joshua fight that we're speaking about, where the first time these guys hit somebody, they hurt them and they get back up and they start coming after them. It's going to be like, these guys have no idea what to do after that.
Well, they don't have, listen, I've said it for the last...
And then they get mentally ruined.
Well,
like Deontay Wilder, they get mentally ruined and their career is over. All of a sudden, they went from on the top of the sport to easy pickings.
Well, listen, I've been saying it for years and years. The fighters, promotional teams and management teams are not doing them any justice by picking cupcakes and maneuvering them to a title fight. All they're trying to do is cash out and win a fight or get the opportunity to win a championship fight, pay everybody off, and then if they win, hey, we get another payday. If not, too bad, so sad. And that's the problem. And it starts with all the fighters. Occasionally you'll get some of them that'll rise to the top and actually be what they're projected to be, but the majority of them do not. And Deontay Wilder is a great example, not knocking him because I do believe he's the hardest punching heavyweight in the division, but that's all he's got. Make no mistake, that's all the man has, and it's helped him. But now, like you said, he loses 2 fights basically to Tyson Fury, and he's mentally shot. He can't live with it. To come out and start blaming his team for tainting the water and the judges against him and the ref against him and all of this stuff. I mean, that's just signs of either somebody that's experiencing some mental problems or not holding themselves accountable. End of the story, and that's the majority of a lot of youth today. They don't hold themselves accountable.
And that is, before we go, I got to say this, in terms of wanting to bring fighters along properly and fighters wanting to learn from the best and fight the best. And so this way they're ready for any situation. Over at Newburgh Hook Elite, which I'm involved in, Bill, Coach Leonard Lee, the founder of the program, we have a young fighter down there named Elijah Williams, who's only 17 years old. And Elijah and Coach Lee are actually in Florida. They're coming home today, but they went down there because Elijah is trying to get better so when he can finally get his break and enter the pro ranks, he's going to be well-rounded. He went and he did a tour of the gyms down there. He went to the 5th Street Gym where he made a great impression, but this last week he sparred with Keith Thurman, he sparred with Chris Algieri. He's only 17 years old. He made a great showing of himself, and he, because he wants to be a complete fighter, he doesn't want to go and have these easy fights. He doesn't want to be somebody who's just going to go out there and be a front runner. He wants, to go out there and chase greatness. And he wants to be prepared to chase greatness. So, that's, Eli is not only, a role model to all the other fighters at that gym, but Eli himself wants to go out there and become great, and he doesn't want to be just a flash in the pan name. And a lot of these young fighters, like you say all the time, and what a lot of fans are starting to notice is they want all too much too fast, and they're happy with what they get. Very few want to go out there and achieve greatness by making sure that they're fully prepared for all and every situation, and that's what I love about this kid.
Well, let me say something to Eli. You know, my advice to Eli is simply this. Number one, the people that are around you right now seem to care about you, and they're doing everything that, should be done. Remember that, because somewhere along the line, Eli is going to be tempted by somebody else that's going to tell him that they can give them more and do better than who they are, who he's with right now. It happens to everybody. And the second thing I'm going to say, this is to Eli's team. Eli's team, yeah, the kid wants to fight the best, but the trick in getting a kid that will become a champion and be there for a while and actually hone the skills is to progressively increase the level of opposition from fight to fight. Not to jump in over your head at first, and not to challenge yourself with potato puffs every single fight. You go with the progression. You be patient, and you build up. You hone your skills the way they used to do it back in the day. And the kid, if he's got the skills, he's going to be successful. But he's got to do those two things. Team, and his team has to not be greedy. That's it, and be patient. So
he's got a great team behind him, Bill. Considering I'm part of his team, so and Leonard Lee has been with him since he was a young kid.
Wow, the poor guy. The poor guy. He's got you. He's got
show, and he'll be a champion.
He's got you part of the team. Oh, jeez. Sorry to hear that, but no, I didn't even know that. And I'm saying
that's why I mentioned Newark. That's why I mentioned our gym. With logo.
No, but what I'm saying to you is it's good because hopefully you know what I'm saying. So anyway, Dax will be back next week to talk about the Canelo and Callum-Smith outcome. And until then, enjoy the fights, and we'll talk to you then. Keep up the good work on the website, by the way. I appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Enjoy your day. Next time, don't reject my call.
That was you rejecting me. But anyway, I'll talk to you later. That's Dax Khan, and he was giving us a lot of his thoughts. But in any event, we're going to get Alex Papali on and see what his thoughts of the fight was. But, yeah, to be honest with you, I wasn't sure what that whole Anthony Joshua, Floyd Mayweather Jr. Connection was. I don't recall seeing that in the past. But anyway, we're going to get Alex Papali on, and I just want to say his segment is being brought to us in part by the Title Bout Championship computer game. And the Title Bout Championship computer game is the same game that Alex does all his simulations with. You should get yourself a copy of it right now. You can visit our website, BillyCBoxing.com, and scroll down a little bit and click on the banner. But get yourself a copy of that right now. Joining us right now is Alex Papali. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning. Hey, how?
I'm doing well. Your sound is going in and out.
I got an echo?
No, you had nothing. I would have accepted an echo. No, you keep going in and out. I hear some of it and some of it I don't. But
you want to call me back? Or?
No. We'll try if it keeps up. We'll do it. What's your thoughts on the fight last night?
Which one?
Well, I'm primarily talking about Pulev, AJ.
Yeah, I'm only kidding. I enjoyed it, but I'm trying not to be looking at my notes here that I wrote during the fight, and I was very critical
of AJ. You and Dax, man. I guess give me some more criticisms because obviously Dax was not impressed either. What's the criticism?
I just think he's sort of like a timid giant, a very Lennox Lewis and Vladimir Klitschko-ish. I just saw when I was, how I've been trying to avoid Facebook, but I just went on now to share the video for the show, and I saw former cruiserweight Matt Godfrey had a post that said something. I'm paraphrasing something along the lines how Anthony Joshua is like a post Rosario Camacho. I agree with that so much. I think in a way Andy Ruiz took the best of him I don't know. And at the end, when they were saying, "Oh, those uppercuts were Mike Tyson-ish," and he's like, I was thinking more Larry Holmes. Larry Holmes would have knocked Pulev out in the fourth. I don't know. I mean, it was really bad refereeing. Now, I'm not sure I agree with the commentators who were saying how the fact that there was no referee's instructions at the beginning of the fight meant that he was a lousy referee. I'm not sure that was the fact, but as the fight wore on, yeah. When Pulev turned his back, that could have been it right there. And I think that would have, in a way, that would have been helpful to Joshua because it wouldn't have shown that he gasses out. And then he, as much as he is a good finisher, I don't think that Pulev should have lingered on the hook for as long as he did. I think Fury's the best. I already thought this. I think Fury is the best of the heavyweights, and I think he beats Joshua. Even though I was rooting for Joshua for a very long time after he beat Klitschko. I was very high on this guy, but I really think he's regressed, and it's kind of sad.
You don't look at it as gaining patience and not making mistakes. I mean, the truth of the matter is I believe that he has become Klitschko and Lennox Lewis-ish because and how can we knock either one of those fighters' careers in terms of success? And especially with Lennox Lewis walking away at the top of his game, never to be exposed again. A lot of fighters come back too many times. I think that by rushing in, I think he learned something. See, I look at it this way. Fighters that learn something from making mistakes become the better fighters. The guys that make the same mistakes over and over and over just go away and become, Deontay Wilder, And the truth of the matter is Andy Ruiz beat AJ the first time. AJ was out of shape. AJ took him lightly, and AJ wasn't ready for his speed. And when he dropped him, he figured the fight was over, and he wasn't ready for the comeback that Ruiz gave him. He was ready for that if Pulev would have come back. He was ready. He was patient. You're right about the referee. I don't know about the pre-fight instructions. I mean, they give you every single instruction in the dressing room prior to the fight. So maybe he just was, cutting some of the BS out. But
I think he was tired of waiting, like the rest of us.
Yeah, no, I know. But
the center was like, okay, it's time for me to sing a song.
Yeah, I know. But I think AJ's problem. Yes, he doesn't go in for the kill, but he's being a little patient. I think the glaring problem for AJ, as far as I'm concerned, is his lack of defense. And I think that maybe it's time that they add another trainer to McCracken, his team, because he seemingly has taken this kid as far as he can. Now, as far as he can is the unified world heavyweight champion, but now the next guys in his sights are the best of the best, and of course that's Tyson Fury, and should he fight Deontay Wilder? Not that I think Deontay Wilder is anything special, but he's got the most powerful punch in the division, and because of AJ's lack of defense, I think it poses problems for him. I don't think that Tyson Fury beats him. I think I know that's crazy to say since Tyson Fury has looked unbeatable, but I do believe AJ can box, and I think AJ's biggest weakness, aside from lack of defense and his trainer, is the fact that he can't fight smaller guys, like Dax was alluding to come. But the truth of the matter is he does exceptionally well against guys that are 6'4" and bigger. And, of course, Tyson Fury will be bigger than him at 7 foot or 6'9", whatever he is. So I don't know. I think that would be a good fight if it happens. And I do believe it will happen.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to Fury Joshua, and I don't want it to be in Saudi Arabia, but I guess that's That's what I heard earlier this morning at like 1 a.m. or something. I forget where I heard it, but they were saying, or maybe it was on SportsCenter, that they're already talking about, Arum is already talking about a 2-fight deal, the first fight being in Saudi Arabia. I mean, I don't know. If that fight is not in London, I just don't understand. But I think that it could be that they're thinking logistically with COVID-19 and everything.
No, they're thinking logistically with the U.S. audience, pay-per-view. That's what they're thinking.
And the big Mahmood.
Right. Come on. That's all Bob Arum is thinking.
Because I don't think they'd... Because there they might not, they'd have the site fee and everything, and they don't care about the fans, how full it is. Whereas in Wembley, they want it to be full. I want it to be full. I mean, it was funny last night seeing a half-empty arena singing Neil Diamond. They still belted it out.
You're damn right they did. I would have never thought it was a half-filled arena. You know, I was like, I love the Brit. Man, I really wish in the past 17 years that we've been doing this show that I would have had an opportunity to do an event in England. I'd never been there, and it would have been great. But let me ask you this. What the hell is the connection with Anthony Joshua and Floyd Mayweather Jr.? I was throwing up when I was watching the hugging after the fight. I mean, what's up with that? Did I miss something?
I think it was just sort of like game recognizes game type thing. He's, arguably the heavyweight champion of the world. He's got most of the belts, if not all but one, I guess. But
wait a minute, didn't Floyd offer to train Deontay?
I think at some point, yeah.
He did.
And I mean, and he definitely is certainly much closer affiliated with Wilder in terms of his promotional entanglements and stuff.
Well, thugs usually stay with thugs, don't they?
The thing that would be funny would be if they both end up testing positive for coronavirus. Because,
no mask.
Gave Floyd a great big hug.
I know.
Floyd took a private jet there. So I hope for their sake they're both negative.
Well,
but yeah, I think you're right. Yes, in some ways, a more patient Joshua is a better fighter. But Bill, this boxing is spectacle as well as sport, and you heard the whistles in the UK. That's the equivalent of boring, and I think that he's a safety first guy, and maybe some of it has to do with this age of heavyweights. Because like we were saying, Lennox and Vladimir Klitschko, the greats of the last 20 years or so.
Yeah, but it's not just heavyweights. Look at Floyd. The safety first has equaled. Listen, we don't like it because it's not the boxing purists, and you and myself are boxing purists. There's no question about that. But the game has changed. Everybody gets a trophy. Everybody wins. No one wants to hurt anybody because you don't even get standing 8 counts anymore. We're all talking how awful it was that the referee didn't stop it because Kubrat turned his back on him. I mean, and if he would have waved it off, and then Pulev is complaining. I mean, it's the way it is. No one wants to get hurt. No one wants. You got it. In New York, you have 2 doctors now. You practically go through an MRI in between rounds just so for them to test you. The safety first is great, but you're in the wrong sport. Listen.
And there's still bad stoppages, late stoppages, early stoppages like that. So yeah, you can't remove the just human error and stuff. But I do think that part of it is the reality of just how gigantic these guys are. I mean, basically, these guys are like power forwards, the size of power forwards. I started watching the sport in the Mike Tyson era when I was 15. He was the size of a point guard, a small one. So, yeah, the sport has changed, especially in the unlimited class. So I think that's one of the reasons why these guys are a little more hesitant, is they're gigantic. And the intimidation factor of getting hit by a gigantic person, the idea that you're going to get put to sleep, is definitely, that reality is there. And I think you can see that anxiety in Joshua, whereas you didn't used to see it. If you watch his fight with Dillian White, where's that guy? That bold, able to change his size. He could come in low. He doesn't throw body punches anymore. There's a lot of things that, yes, he has improved in some ways in his patience and stuff. But if you watch that last round when he had him hurt, I mean, he was measuring, just trying to land that massive KO. Go back to what's working. Stick the jab in his face. And just, if you, I don't know. It's very easy for me to be critical sitting here. But, yeah, he's, I don't know. He's not as dominant and invulnerable as they make it sound. But that's the thing nowadays. All these, every single one of these sports shows, it seems like the commentators are just way out there in the land of hyperbole, and they're not talking about what's actually happening.
They don't want to offend anyone.
Right.
At
one point last night, did I hear Brian Custer refer to Mauro Ranallo as the GOAT? I mean, if we're throwing around the greatest of all time, there's no, what's normal now? What's average? Everybody's the greatest of all time. That doesn't work.
Nah, well, it works when you're dealing with an audience that doesn't know any better. And that's the sad reality. I hate that.
Why can't we just be good?
Why
be good?
Why can't we?
Greatest.
Why can't we prove that we're good by whatever our field of play is in boxing?
Just doing it. Just do your thing.
Just do it.
Just stop talking about it.
Yeah, let's go, champ.
That said, I thought that the Verdejo Nakatani fight was awesome. And is it me, or are two of the best fights of the year top-ranked fights? Because Zepeda-Baranchek was another barn burner, and that was another top-ranked card.
Well, Top Rank, they're trying to get all their fighters in the ring. I mean, the fight that they got to make is Errol Spence against Terrence Crawford. I mean, that's the fight in the welterweight division. But let's move ahead to next week. Canelo Alvarez is taking on Callum Smith. How do you like this fight? I mean, the truth of the matter is Saul Canelo Alvarez for the last decade has fought the best of the best. There's no question about it. I mean, he's sitting here with a 53-1 with 2-draw record. 36 of his wins coming by knockout. He's only lost to Floyd Mayweather Jr., which we got to give him credit for even fighting that bum. I think he's Floyd Mayweather Jr., I shouldn't say he's a bum, but he's ruined the sport. You want to know what happened to our sport? Look at Floyd. God, he drives me crazy. He just, I can't stand him. And he's coming back. He's fighting that tough fight. That Logan Paul. I mean, everybody wants to see that fight. I mean, not only that, but he says the first million buyers can get it for 20. First million? They're not even going to get him. Listen, if Floyd Mayweather can pull off 1 million buys for this fight, I'll kiss his toe, because the truth of the matter is anybody that will pay for this. I'm not paying for this fight. I am not paying for this fight. I don't care about this fight. I have no interest in it. It's a joke, Alex.
Yeah, I'm not. It's not a fight to me. It's not something I'm going to be watching. And part of me, I do have a signed Floyd poster, and part of me is like, okay, I think it's about time, ready to part with that one. I don't know. Hey, God bless him for wanting to stay active, but yeah, it has nothing to do with boxing. It probably, Bill, I wouldn't pucker up just yet, because I wouldn't be surprised if that does very well. Because the influencers, have you heard this word they use nowadays? You're an influencer, Bill. If you have a YouTube channel and you have lots of followers, and maybe they take your advice on what skin cream to use, you're an influencer. Well, the influencers, I bet, are going to like that fight. and I wouldn't be surprised if it does really well. It'll just be a weekend that we, us purists, will have to turn away. Like I do when people talk. I love, you know me, Bill, I love vampires and werewolves. But when people talk about Twilight, I turn away because that's not for me.
Alex, Logan Paul doesn't even have a win. He's 0-1.
What?
I mean,
the
argument when he fought the MMA guy, Conor McGregor, and all the MMA fans thought for sure that he was going to beat Floyd. At least you had something. At least you had some potential. Here we got Logan Paul, who's 0-1. He lost his fight to the other YouTuber, KSI or KS1 or whatever the hell his name is. Lost. And Mayweather, sure, I'll fight him. Give me my whatever he's going to make, $10 million or whatever. I'm not knocking Floyd for taking the money because that's just being smart in a way. But come on, man. Listen, let's get back to Saul Canelo Alvarez and Callum Smith. Callum Smith, is he going to give Saul Canelo Alvarez a fight?
I think so. I think we're going to see a better fight than we did Canelo's last time out versus Kovalev, because I think Kovalev was sort of not really up to Canelo's level. And I do think that Callum Smith is going to engage him and might give him a couple of wrinkles that he has some difficulty with. I think for one, I know this sounds kind of weird, but I think he's stronger and harder to move around than Kovalev. Even though Kovalev's bigger, Kovalev was not a guy. Kovalev hit hard, but he didn't have that same physical imposition that I think Callum Smith is going to be. I think Canelo bests him by decision or late round body shot, because you can never count Canelo out because the body shots are so amazing. And if you hit a guy right in the guts, I don't care who you are, you're going out.
Callum Smith has just about a half a foot height advantage.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be a little more difficult than it's definitely going to be a more difficult fight for Canelo than Kovalev was. But I don't see Callum Smith beating Canelo. That's for sure.
Well, here's the thing, Callum Smith, when you have that kind of a height advantage and size advantage overall, if you establish your jab and you're patient, just like you're criticizing AJ for being, you could steal a fight, right? But Saul Canelo Alvarez, his game plan, and I would hope and assume that Callum Smith's team understands this, his game plan is to do exactly what you just said, work the body. He's got to get inside to slow down, presuming that Callum Smith is going to try to set up his power punches behind the jab. So Saul Canelo Alvarez is going to try to get in tight and land body shots and maybe sneak something in to chop the tree down. The difference between Callum Smith and Sergey Kovalev is that Kovalev proved to be a guy that didn't really like to get hit. I'm not saying Callum Smith likes to get hit, but he was in a vicious fight with Georgie Groves. And aside from that, when I look at his resume, and it is partially to blame the division, he hasn't fought the caliber of Saul Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez, for the last decade, since the Miguel Cotto fight, has fought the best fighters he could fight. I mean, there's no question about it. So I don't know. I think that this is when, at 30 years old, like Dax suggested that Canelo has not even hit his peak yet. He could very well be right, because I think now in this fight, should Canelo get past Smith, this starts putting Canelo Alvarez in that all-time great discussion for real. I know that they've been talking about that for a while, but I mean, this is a guy that has done things similar to a Roy Jones Jr., moving up and down in weight and beating this champion. He's not going after secondary people. He's going after main guys. I mean, again, Callum Smith winning the World Boxing Super Series in super middleweight, that's a feat. I mean, that right there puts him at number one. I got to give credit to Canelo. There's no question about it. And it makes you wonder, why weren't these fights made before? Was it because of Golden Boy? Was it because of DAZN? Was it because Canelo was causing it? I don't know. To come back with this fight, first one as a free agent, so to speak, on DAZN, it kind of really clouds that whole Golden Boy issue, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does make you wonder about that, and I wonder if part of it was all just the way this year has been so weird, and that this became the most logical fight for him. But you're right; it does seem like because this fight was there right after he beat Kovalev too, so it's not like it wasn't on the radar. But I'm glad we're getting it, and you're right. I think that. This is going to be interesting. Who gets Fighter of the Year? Canelo, absolutely. If he wins big, he could be the late winner of it because, yeah, you're right. This would be a very significant victory. Another title in another weight class. So yeah, I do think, and it's like you said, it's the Calzaghe, the Roy Jones type territory. So, yeah, I think a lot of people would be immediately clamoring for, okay, he's the best pound for pound. There's already people thinking of that. I mean,
they did last night. They did last night. They kept saying he was pound for pound number one. And
PBRB looks at him as number one, and I think it's largely on his the class of opposition. The other thing we're getting is Golovkin is fighting Friday night.
Yeah, but unfortunately, who cares anymore? The argument that everybody, Triple G still wants to see a third fight with Canelo. That's not going to happen. Canelo has speedballed right past Triple G. Triple G's next big money fight, Oscar De La Hoya. If they let Oscar De La Hoya come back to fight him, that's going to be a money fight. Who else is there for Triple G? Triple G has slowed down. Some bad business decisions. I don't know if it was on Triple G's part or his lack of being able to secure the third fight with Canelo. I don't know, but time has not been too kind to Triple G. Who else is left for him? It's showing us with his opponent who he's fighting. I don't even know who he is. I don't even know who he is.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe Golovkin Charlo would be a good fight for next year. If he wins and still looks viable. But you're right. It is.
Charlo's not going to fight even an old Triple G. Charlo's a punk. The Charlo brothers are. They're punks. They are not real. They're not the real deal. I'm sorry. They are a typical PBC fighter. They are. No matter how. Listen, Errol Spence is the best PBC fighter that they have. Deontay's under that banner. I guess Floyd is under that banner. Should he fight? But I mean, come on, the Charlo brothers. They just don't do anything for me. They really don't. And I don't want to hear anybody because I referred to Mayweather before as a thug, and now I'm calling the Charlo brothers as punks. I don't want anybody to come out and say that's a racist comment. I has nothing to do with race. There's plenty of punk other people out there that aren't of color. So I don't want to hear that crap because that's the next thing you're going to hear.
The phrase the kids use today, Bill, is "Don't at me." Don't at me.
Don't at me. I don't even get
that little the A sign for the Twitter.
Oh, don't at me. I get
don't
it.
Don't at me.
I get it. But it's a shame. Then the other thing, the one thing I want to say before we go is this: these big cards, Canelo and Smith is a big card. Last night, you could make the argument because AJ, is a unified heavyweight champ. It was a big card. The undercards suck. These are not the typical world championship pay-per-view caliber, even though DAZN, but that's a pay-per-view service type of a deal, or paid service. The Don King era of championship fights was a night of championship fights. It was a night of, you're tuning in for any one of 3 or 4 or even 5 fights, not even just the main event. Today we're spending twice as much money for the main event, and we're getting Ugats. We're getting Ugats. Ugats. We're getting Ugats for the undercard. And Canelo-Smith is no different. Yes, we're going to see some young fighters, Diego Pacheco, Alexis Espino, Austin Williams, all going to be on the card. But, who are they fighting? They're fighting guys that are going to make them look good. Ashton Skykes is fighting Espino, 5-3-1. Rodolfo Gomez, 14-4-1, taking on Pacheco. These are fights that are going to be entertaining if you like the A side. You're going to basically tune in to watch them beat the snot out of somebody. And we're going to wait for the main event. These events, these big fight cards, where there's a major player as the main event, we need to start shaping up some better cards for this sport, Alex. Because, this new generation that loses the attention in 3 or 4 minutes. That's why MMA is so popular right now. How long is it going to take before they start recognizing that these undercard fights are garbage?
I don't think they ever will. I think that's why, I love that, the old Larry Merchant, you can't save boxing and you can't kill it. If you think about it, though, boxing, I don't know, I'm kind of grateful for where we're at. As much as I hear you, there's a lot of redundancy and annoyances.
Tell me where we're at. Tell me where we're at in boxing. Why are you grateful?
Think about it. Yesterday, I watched boxing from 2:30 in the afternoon till 1:30 in the morning.
How many competitive fights did you watch?
That was pretty awesome.
How many competitive fights did you watch? Okay, exactly. so if you're going to tune in, I'll tell you what's happened. Okay, I'll tell you what's happened. Because the boxing has become so outrageous with all of the commissions and the cost it takes to put on an event, they've pretty much squashed the club show circuits. The guys that you used to go, and especially in your area, and be able to go to a club show at least twice a month, see a Birchfield show, or there's plenty others down there that you see guys you never heard of. But that's how you would build up fighters. That's how you would get to know them. You'd learn about the sport, both ends, whether you're a fan or whether you're a fighter. Those have essentially disappeared because those small promoters can't afford to put on a show. Forget about COVID. They can't do a show with COVID anyway because you can't have spectators, and that's how you make your money when there's no TV. We had a great vehicle with streaming and stuff, but nope. Everybody had to get greedy with that. The Go Fight Live, you pay for it. Everybody said, screw that shit. I'm not watching that. And that's what happened. It ruined it. So now you fast forward, you're at another level, and now we pay for it, but we get one fight. So yeah, there's a lot on TV, but it's like a restaurant. Do I want to go to a restaurant that they give me a bucket full of food that's shit? Or do I want to go to a restaurant that the food is good and maybe you don't go home with a doggy bag? You know what I mean? I there's people here where I live that they define a good restaurant with how much. Oh man, I went home with so much. I fed myself for a week. Yeah, well that doesn't mean it's good. I give my dog a big bowl of food too, and he doesn't eat that much. So it's quality, not quantity, my man.
No, I agree with you, and I do think that's what I was going to say was that there were gems, but each card had like one undercard gem or one main event gem, and by the end of the day, it felt like, okay, well, I did see a couple of good fights, and I watched boxing all day.
How many of the names do you remember?
That's right. and I mean that's the thing that's tough is especially as a purist is that I'm following the sport and so when I talk to my friends and they don't give a shit about boxing, it is one of those things where it is a little frustrating because it's like these guys, I don't know, the Joshua Pulev fight, there should have been more interest in that. So I don't know. It's there's more boxing on TV than there ever was. But you're right. It has been watered down in terms of the level of competition on each individual card. There's still definitely gems. And we did see, I thought the Chris Colbert, Jamie Arboleta fight was really good. And I enjoyed the Hitchens-Mendez fight as well, even though the Ackerman card was bonkers. So I don't know. I mean, I think that's the thing that's annoying is that we're getting, and the ESPN thing didn't make sense to me, is like, why are we waiting for 45 minutes for boxing when you have ESPN Plus to put the boxing on? I don't understand. Why am I paying for ESPN Plus and still waiting?
Guess what? I'm not. I just canceled it. I canceled them all. The only reason why I'm keeping DAZN is because of next week. But hey,
I do think that. I think that one of those things about that was, we end up, there's all these different apps, and yet it ended up working out because the football game interrupted everything and was so long. We got to watch the whole Showtime card before we had to switch to ESPN.
Hey, so that's like I just lost my train of thought. I cut an advantage. Oh, that's like today when I was a kid. We had 2 channels, right? Today there's hundreds and hundreds of channels, and yet you still go, there's nothing to watch.
That's right. It's like the Springsteen song, 57 channels and nothing on.
Yeah. Hey, did you hear that they definitely came up with, forget the COVID vaccine, but they came up with a cure for COVID. Did you hear that?
What's that?
Well, basically, you just wear a New York Jets uniform because they can't catch nothing. So,
that's pretty good.
If we start wearing Jets shirts and stuff, you won't catch COVID.
I like that. I like the self-deprecating humor.
That's what's happened to me. It's totally. I'm at the end. Just start shoveling dirt on me now, Alex. Because
that's like me saying, you go into a room. There's an astrophysicist, a brain surgeon, and a vegan. How can you tell which one's the vegan? That's easy. The vegan will tell you.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. That's funny. Well, listen. You have a great week. We'll be back talking post Canelo-Smith next week, and I think it's going to be a good one. I think it's going to be competitive, and my early prediction, of course, is Canelo. And I'm kind of with you. I think a body shot might end the night for Smith. I think Canelo, although he has lost some of his knockout punch since he's moved up in weight, I think he showed that he found a trick. I don't know what pill it was, but when he fought Kovalev, he definitely had some pop at that weight. So let's see if he can carry it at 168.
Absolutely, and I'm going to marinate some tofu in clenbuterol today, just in honor of Canelo.
That tofu. That's yeah. I'll be thinking of that when I'm having my sausage today. I'm going to have sausage with pasta. That would be good today. But I'll see what it would be like if I threw a block of white tofu in there. But eating tofu sandwich. Hey, Bill, you want a tofu sandwich? Yeah, nah, I'm past. I'm stuffed.
Spread some water on this bread.
I'm stuffed. I couldn't possibly fit another chunk of tofu down, But anyway, Alex, you have a good one, my man, and I'll talk to you next week.
All right, Billy C. Take care.
That's my main man, Alex Papali, giving us his thoughts. And in case you didn't know it, he's a vegan too. That's what he's making a joke on himself. I got to apologize. I had at least 7 emails that I meticulously took care of and put them in a folder, and because I like to print them out and read them. I couldn't find them, but I did find my man Coach, who did send. He's just as sick as me. over this. In case you can't see it, it's Mayweather Logan Paul. It's a joke. As much as and I will say this, and I mean this sincerely, I do admire Floyd Mayweather for his success from the business perspective in boxing, and not that he's supposed to really care about other people, but he has single-handedly ruined it because of his own success. People want to copy off of him, and the end result is the way the sport is now. Now, I could be totally wrong. I know we are not, the younger fans' choice of a boxing show, and that's primarily one of the reasons everything comes to an end, and generations pass and new ones come on, and that's why we're not going to be doing this show as much. We may just do specials next year, like I said. I do hope that I get to appear on other people's shows and give my thoughts and stuff. I had a great time with my man John Signorella last week. And if you haven't caught that, you can check that out. It's up on YouTube and podcasts and everything else. Just search John Signorella. My email from Coach says, "Hey, Bill, just win, baby. Bill, did your Jets bail at the end of the game to protect what looks like their number one draft pick? Ha ha." He's referring to the Jets losing to the Raiders last week in the last 48 seconds. I couldn't believe it. I'm sitting there watching him, and my grandkids came over for Sunday dinner, and my granddaughter said to me, "Oh, Grandpa, did the Jets win?" Because they know my pain. And I said, "It looks like they won." And of course, my wife has to say, "Well, there's 41 seconds left. I give him a chance." And I went in and mixed myself a drink, or poured myself a drink. I don't mix nothing in it. But I walked back in, and the Raiders are celebrating. I'm like, what the hell just happened? Yeah, the Jets blew it. The Jets blew it in 40 seconds and lost. Thanks for reminding me, Paul. But anyway, he says, "Wish you would have given me a heads up about the show. I missed the original viewing, but watch it later. Your shows are as good as ever. Thank you very much." He says, "I agreed. Spence won hands down after collecting another big payday. Garcia did answer like a pro. I believe all his limitations were exposed by Spence's strengths." I commented last week that, he did what I would expect a fighter to do when they lose, give the accolades to the guy that just beat you, not make a ton of excuses. Today's youth, if you want to listen to one thing, hold yourself accountable, man, for whatever happens. I use the analogy like a deer, I hit a deer is taking responsibility for hitting a deer. The deer hit me is you blaming somebody else for hitting a deer. So he says, funny thing, whether it's fans not knowing sports history or COVID, no matter what, boxing, the sport, not the new boxing entertainment, there was a time the fight was the actual entertainment, not all the backstories. It just seems now it's sold out and headed down the wrong path. 100% agree with you, Coach. The fight isn't the story anymore. It's the guy out. Did he get caught with this girl? Did he get caught with that? Did he crash his car? Did he drink? Did he throw money around? Did he get arrested? Yeah. He says, "I saw that you touched on politics and boxing. Would be hard not to do these days, and I loved you guys touch on a comparison of the two. Exposing the PBC was great. Couldn't help but think of them paying their guys not to fight, which is extended unemployment, or a $15 minimum wage flipping fries on par with fighters wanting monstrous purses no matter who they fight, or even worse, the general lack of any sense of urgency in not at all, but way too many fights and fighters appearing to just be picking up a check." What I meant by that was the fighters today are able to maneuver themselves into getting a decent paycheck for fighting a bum, so to speak. No disrespect, because in my opinion, I know we call them bums, but there's no bum in the sport of boxing. You got to give them all credit for having the balls to step in the ring. I just think that the natural cycle of a fighter climbing the ranks is gone. The sanctioning bodies have caused it with too many belts. I mean, now everybody has a belt, similar to what we're always talking about. Everyone gets a trophy. So it's been watered down, the sport. And because fighters only fight for under certain banners, we don't see a lot of the crossover type fights, which we should. He says, seems like boxing's following the Heyman-Mayweather WWE path of least resistance all the way to just announced Mayweather-Logan fighting, waiting for the Patriots to play a college team in the new Super Bowl. The Mayweather-Logan Paul is a complete joke. I as much as I despise Floyd Mayweather Jr. And think that he gets way too much credit, I would beg the guy not to fight Logan Paul. I would rather see him fight, who's the other one, Jake Paul? Or who's the other one that just fought and beat the basketball guy? I forget his name, but he would be a bigger challenge than Logan Paul. I mean, come on, man. This is such a joke. Credit, he's making whatever he's making, but don't buy it. Let's send a message. I hope Alex was wrong. He says, too many people's businesses are getting crushed, and many don't even want to hear about $1 million sparring or WWE sessions. Not a fan of the Snoop Dogg venture either, even though I grew up watching boxing with the family on weekends on CBS, NBC, and ABC's Wild World of Sports, and then Sunday nights, the Ed Sullivan Show, also with the family. I couldn't imagine watching a pay-per-view boxing event interjected with the Sullivan Show acts now. Thanks for the email. And again, I apologize. I know Mike sent me one, and Alex sent me one, and I forget the others. But I apologize. If you want, resend them, and I'll read them next week for our last show of the year. Yeah, it's a shame. The Snoop Dogg thing. I like Snoop. I do. I'd be lying if I said I didn't. But I just don't think the music as a performance, aside from maybe a ring walk, is going to work. Rock Nation tried it. It didn't work. Now, with that said, in Europe, I've seen where they have major acts playing rock and roll in between fights. In Montreal, and you go to a fight, and in between rounds, they got these gorgeous go-go dancers dancing, and I have a tendency to watch them and not pay attention to the fights. But since, thank God, they only have them in between rounds. But in any event, who knows? The world belongs to the youth, and they will make it or break it. Just remember one thing, boys and girls, you Utes. Don't be complaining and pointing fingers 20 years from now at everybody else, because what's going to be going on in 20 years is the decisions that you're making right now. So, it's great to, assume that the world could be one big happy place to live in. The reality of it, there's a lot of people that act like they want that, but deep down they have an ulterior motive. So, anyway, I hope everybody has a great, productive week. And remember, watch the Canelo and Smith fight. It should be a good one. I would be shocked if it's not. And just a programming note, we will be doing the show next week. It will be our last show of 2020. And moving forward, we will be doing a show from time to time. No more regular shows. I guess a lot of people could give a shit. And the people that do, depending upon the demand, we'll take it from there. Give the people what they want. But right now, they don't want it. So anyway, hey, listen. Make sure you tune in next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. Until then, I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby.